You want to know how agents like to be contacted? Using the VORG, you'll find out.
Speechless. Speechless.
Hi, I'm Kim Wilson.
And I'm Natasha Marchewka.
And this is Speechless. Welcome to our behind-the-scenes take on real life in VO, where we share our stories, our resources, and our unsolicited opinions. Today, we have some fabulous people visiting us who are another resource of resources. No, they are a resource of services.
That's
for
right.
voiceover.
Have
Tell
you
them
ever
about
heard
it.
of the Voiceover Resource Guide? Well, you're about to. They like to call themselves the VORG. This has been around since 1988. And our friends today, Jay Preston and Tim Friedlander, are going to tell us all about this new project that they've taken over and what they update it with and what all the good stuff that's in here. And they're a sponsor for our show. Check
Hello.
it out. Well, welcome to our show, Speechless. Thank you for being fans of the show. We're thrilled. We are absolute huge fans of the VORG. Let's start with beverages. Did you bring a beverage that was on the agenda?
I have a
Yes.
latte.
From LaCroix.
A latte.
Nice. I brought a rose gin, a raspberry rose gin.
Wow.
Which is
Delicious.
excellent.
And I brought a raspberry chocolate smoothie.
Wow.
Yum. Cheers, guys. Thanks for being here. We really
Cheers.
appreciate it. Mm-hmm.
Yay.
Yes.
For the uninitiated.
What the hell is a VORG? And it sounds like, a cyborg, but what the hell is a VORG? Tell us.
Jay, you got it?
Yeah, we'll tag team it, but the VORG is the Voiceover Resource Guide. And since voice actors love acronyms, when the VORG was being published a long time ago, it started in 1988. It just was a little square thing. But then as it got into a more triangle kind of rectangle thing, they put it Voiceover Resource Guide, and VORG was down the left side of it. And so people just started calling it the VORG because that's what it looked like. And that's kind of where it got its little VORG nickname. And then when me and Tim took over, we kind of just ran with it. Maybe you've taken it too far, but we go. Yeah.
Well, tell us about it. Yeah. Go ahead, Natasha. You were going to ask.
It was established in LA, so it's originally an LA thing, right?
Yeah, originally in LA, it was Dave from Dave and Dave's, who one of the original Daves. And it was just like, it was a note card that he kept with him when he would go around to studios, and he started just kind of writing down people who would meet and engineers and stuff like that. And then he came a photocopy, and then it became like a trifold pamphlet. And in this case, it was the only resource that had access to who the studios were, who the engineers were, who the casting directors, the producers, and then eventually got into Samuel French. Remember Samuel French books, and they would have the VORG there, so you could go to Samuel French and get resources. And from there, it grew into a full pamphlet and a website eventually, that I believe was, I want to say early 2000s website was when the website was built, and probably also the last time it was updated.
Yeah, 2004.
Yeah, 2004. Definitely had been primarily LA based, because that's where Dave was. At one point, it branched out into a joint New York / LA version. So you had, one side was New York, flip it over, and the other side was LA.
That was in 2015.
It was 2015. That only lasted a few editions. It didn't really take off the way that I think that had hoped, and it kind of went back to being more of an LA thing. And then the pandemic hit, and in around that time, right before the pandemic, Rick Dasher from North Hollywood Sound actually bought Dave and Dave's. He bought the recording studio, and
in 2018.
In 2018, along with it came the VORG, came the Voiceover Resource Guide, and so they had it for a few months, and the pandemic hit, and they put out one edition and never put out one again. And that's kind of where Jay stepped in, and Jay and I stepped in to take it over.
And then in 2022, right at the end of 2021, he emailed me, and I to be honest, I thought it was spam. He emailed me, he's like, "Hey, do you want to take over the Voice of Resource Guide?" And I was like, "Yeah, right. That's not real."
Yeah.
because it came from and I hadn't heard of it in a while because it stopped going. We all stopped going to studios, so I never picked another one up. And then in 2022, he emailed me again. He was like, "Hey, just curious. I saw your Voiceover Collective website, and I love what you're doing there, and I feel like you could do really well with this instead." And I was like, "Oh, well, Tim, what do you think?" Tim's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
"Yeah, let's do it."
Yep.
Very
So
good. What
we
possessed
Great.
you to take it over during COVID, though? Just because it came about, I guess it was an
Yeah,
opportunity.
it was an opportunity. I mean, it was for anybody who's if for anybody who's familiar with it, those of us who've been around for a while, the Vorg was a pretty big deal. I mean, it was the single place to get information that was trustworthy. There were fairly other places around, but they weren't necessarily updated or accurate. And I remember, in 2018, I put my studio. I saved up and got a little tiny ad in the Vorg, and
Mm,
when it came out, I was like running around town. I'm like, it legitimized. It was a legitimate way to all of a sudden see my studio
right.
up against North Hollywood Sound and Dave and Dave's and Formosa and Lime, and you're in the same pamphlet with them, and
Yeah.
it added legitimacy. And it had kind of, I think it had kind of disappeared a little bit during the pandemic, and so we wanted to not only bring back the resource that was there, but the validity that comes along with it, and then also expand that to the rest of the country, because we are now a global, a global industry. People have left. People are moving. People who were in LA are now in Tennessee and in Ohio somewhere, and they're like, well, what do I do for where
Right.
a studio near where I live? And so we've really tried to build out that kind of that really big resource part of it, um, as best we can.
Very good.
Yeah, and once
Mm.
I mean, even when I first had it, once you know what it is and then how to use it, it becomes like something. It's just part of what you do. Like whenever I
Mm,
needed rates, I would go there. Whenever I needed a studio, I would go see which ones were nearby. And so then, yeah, that was another reason when he was like, "Yeah, you want to make this better?" I was like, "Yeah," because I know how important it's been in my career. So
Yeah.
I wanted to make it even more important. And the website was not searchable. You couldn't even, it had a search bar, but it did not work. And so like the website rebuild was kind of a lot of fun. Like we found an
Yeah.
incredible I mean, fun and stressful, but we
Right.
found like an
Right.
Okay.
amazing web
Define fun.
designer.
Right.
Yeah. Just
So
So
fun to see
kind of,
like your
go ahead. Go
ideas
ahead.
come to life. Like me and Tim
Yeah.
have these, like we always have lofty ideas, right? Like we're like, "Oh, wouldn't it be great if the world was perfect and this?"
Yeah.
Well, like I mean, Tim is another, I mean, National Association of Voice Actors and NAVA is like one of those lofty ideas that was
Yep.
like, wouldn't it be nice if a organization did this, and he made it happen. And so it's
Yep.
like, that's what we kind of
Amazing.
did with the Vorg too, is
Yeah.
just
I
make
mean,
something
wouldn't it
that,
be nice if you could just go onto a website and see a map that had every voiceover studio in the country?
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
And so,
that's
Yeah.
that's
yeah,
what I wanted to ask. So for those of our listeners that don't really understand how to use it or what it actually does, can you quickly just, it's a resource guide that lists studios
yep.
and
Casting directors and coaches and tech and training and agents, and we really wanted to
that
make
are vetted.
that are, yes, vetted
Limited
for
to an
accuracy
extent.
to an extent. Vetted for accuracy. We are not in the market of vetting for whether people. We are in the market of making sure the information is there. And if we
Mhm.
hear something and somebody gives us information, somebody needs to be removed, they will be removed. If somebody needs to be added, they'll be added. We
Got
don't
it.
have the resources to personally vet um, the business practices of everybody's there.
Sure.
But what we have done, Michelle Haynes, who is works at the studio here with me, has taken over the data research of the Voiceover Resource Guide, and she has checked over the last year every single listing in the publication, at least, to make sure that the phone numbers are accurate, the addresses are accurate, they're still open.
So
So we
good.
always say we're like Google, but more accurate. We know we've checked. So you go to
So
Google,
good.
there's outdated ads, there's outdated information on there. And then the map search and this mega grid, and I'll let Jay talk about that because those are kind of two of his brainchilds, the mega grid
Yeah.
specifically, but you could talk about that on how to use the website.
Yeah.
Cool.
So like, and over the years, when I met my wife, we traveled a lot. So like we've been traveling up and down the coast. We traveled all the way to North Dakota a couple years ago, and I really needed to find out where studios were. I have built a travel booth, but sometimes you just need a studio. So um needing something like the map search to exist and really work has been, I've already used our own map search like a dozen times, because we went up to San Francisco and Napa and all the way to Oregon. And I was like, where is oh, that's right. These guys, totally forgot that they were right there in Bend. And so it's such a wonderful tool to know that these places are there and it's been checked, and I can just call, I go to the map, find them, and all the information pops right up and I can give them a quick call. And then the mega grid is one of those, it's like because it's a huge database, right? So
Yeah.
the mega grid becomes a place where you can go and literally filter in by checking off boxes exactly what you were looking for. So if I needed something in the West Coast, I would just click the West Coast. If I needed it to be a recording studio, I'd click that. If I wanted to make sure it was VORG verified, I would click that. And then so the two things in the West Coast would show up, and that would be like, great. Now I only have to call 2 places and not like a 10 list and hope I get an answer. Yeah.
And even more specific about it is that if you need a studio that has, say, a 416 and Source Connect, you can check those options. That's still this is part of what we're still building out, because we have to, every studio has to basically self-provide their information.
Sure.
But eventually you can say, I need to be in Chicago with a space that has a recording studio that can do audiobooks, has a 416 and a U87, and can do Zoom and Source Connect. And you click on that, and every studio that meets those your search results will show up.
Oh,
So
nice.
they already know that those are accessible and available. But this is taking that's the longest step in the process.
Yeah.
Is getting this mega grid out, because we have to get down granularly to every studio. What do you offer? What services do you have? What microphones do you have? We also have added an accessibility option in there as well, which is your studio wheelchair accessible? Is the booth wheelchair accessible? Are you near transit? And one of the things we have is, are you within, I think it's 3 blocks of a transit stop? So if somebody has to take transit, can you provide accessibility for people who have vision issues? Can you provide inverted copy that has color inversion? Can you provide larger copies of people? So we've tried to look into, we're working with some of the some people in the community to make sure to ask them what they would need from it as well, to make sure it's covered. Because my studio's on the 2nd floor. If somebody wanted to come to LA and they're in a wheelchair, you cannot get into my studio. I don't want somebody to waste their time thinking they can come to my studio. If you go to Voice Tracks West, they now have a studio on the 1st floor, so you actually can go to Voice Tracks West now. Their old studio, like a year ago or 2 years ago, was on the 2nd floor. Now they have a new space on the 1st floor, and you can get into. But is there a big barrier over the entry to the studio, to the booth? So can you get into the studio but not necessarily get into the booth? So we've tried to get down to that specificity as much as possible.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it comes down to like everybody who's asked the question. I've called multiple recording studios around the country asking these questions, like, I need, so this saves all that for you. Like we're doing all the footwork, so you can just go, as long as you go and use the VORG, everything will be hunky-dory.
Well, we were going to ask you what your goals and future plans are for it. So other than that, do you have anything else that, do you want to grow it within North America or beyond North America?
Already beyond North America. We've got studios if you go to the map listing, you can find studios in other parts of the country. We're slowly expanding that out. I think our goal, if anything, is to maintain the kind of the history of it that it has, so that people still think of the VORG as the place to go. The voiceover industry has a short memory, right? People who have been anybody who came into the industry in the last 5 years probably doesn't know what the VORG is, because they haven't been to a studio where there actually was a voiceover resource guide there, person, right? So we try, every time somebody asks, okay, I need a studio somewhere, we want the answer to be, great, have you checked on the VORG? Or people ideally don't even have to post about where to find a studio, because they can just go to the VORG and find it. That's our goal with this, is to provide as comprehensive of at least from a studio listing as possible.
Feels like everyone needs a VORG in their back pocket.
Absolutely. Yes.
Not a cyborg, a VORG. Okay, so what I want to know is, are you planning to expand the categories, like adding podcasts?
That's a good question. So we have, there's a fine line. So I guess, if it offers a service of some kind, that is something that you can hire out. We're having there's some growing pains right now with this around tech and training and coaching
Sure.
of trying to figure out, you know, who does tech and training that they can actually be there and provide you services, or who does tech and training, which is just a resource for a website you can go to, and trying to list those things. Possibly there could be a podcast resource in there eventually. That becomes it. You're less of a service and more of a resource.
Yeah.
So it does kind of fit into us, but we are a resource of services, not a resource of. So, but along the same lines, we have some listings for signatory services for paymasters in there. So, it's one of those things that we absolutely could list. We don't currently have a way, and this is what we're struggling with coaching and training, is that some people are local and some people are not local. Some people are global. So we're having a hard time figuring out somebody who says, hey, I'm in LA, but I want to work with somebody who's global. And a coach who says, well, I'm in LA, but I only want to work with people who are in LA. Right. We're listing people, and same thing with demo producers, right? Most demo producers work with people all over the world, but some people still prefer
Only
the
want
in
LA.
person, and some talent would rather be in person. So it's this kind of hybrid. We're struggling slightly with the hybridization of the industry and how you put that into an information resource.
Well,
because we try and do it by where the person, the service provider, is located, not always accurate to the services that they actually provide.
And
So,
we have a map search that's like kind of critical to the VORG itself. So like if you're global and you don't have a legit location that you want to put an address in, you won't show up on the map search. A number will be there for you, but you won't actually be there once you like dive in. So like if you dive down into LA, there's like a number that'll keep going down, like 10, 15, it'll stick at 15, right? And then you keep hitting it, and then you're in a building, because those 15 people don't have a legit location. It's just Los Angeles. So you can't go and click them. So that's one of the biggest problems. It's like if you don't have a legit location, the map search won't work for you, but you could still be listed in your location on the VORG. So you can go to LA recording studio and you'll still be there, but you won't be in the map search if you don't have a legit that was a bad. Recording studio is the worst because they definitely have a location.
Coach.
Yeah, no, we understand though.
Works remotely,
And for podcasts, they come and go. Like, ours, of course, has been around for over 100 episodes, but you never know if they're gonna come and go. So to have it listed and you guys with the hard copy, it's not as immediate.
It's kind of like, we don't list like the paymaster signature. It could probably be the same thing. Like some conventions, if somebody buys an ad, but we could list, we could do a podcast resource on the page on the website.
Yeah, on the website.
Is a thing.
But
we'll look into it.
Yeah, but what you both have done with Speechless is exactly what I would suggest other podcasts to do, is join forces with us a little bit. We'll do a little trade of sponsorship action, and you are now, if everyone goes to the Regional West page on the Voiceover Resource Guide website, it is sponsored by the Speechless podcast, and so that is the only podcast that is advertised on the VORG at the moment. So
keep that on the DL, would you? We're not airing.
You can always buy ad space. So because the VORG itself is made possible by the advertisements only. It doesn't come from me or Tim's money or pocket. It comes from literally the advertisers. And that's kind of back in 2016 or 2013. All of a sudden people, because Dave made this resource guide that just listed stuff, never had ads. And then recording studios and teachers were like, hey, could we put an ad in that since it's being distributed everywhere? And that's kind of where it started. And we really, really love and appreciate our sponsors and our ads. We put a lot of effort into making them look good and making sure that people can see them. And Tim had a great idea of putting QR codes and all the ones in the print, so like people can just have them put it right up on their phone and go right to whatever that service provider is.
Fantastic.
And this year our big goal was to like really we have a contest in this issue of the VORG right now. Not really a contest, but it's like you get your name added to a raffle at the end of the year or at the end of this issue to win a microphone from Roswell Pro Audio. Amazing microphone. But it's just to encourage people to like mention that they're using it. You know, it's
Mhm.
and that helps our advertisers know that people are using it. They
Yep.
do have it in their hands. They are
Mhm.
finding it. They are, finding them. And so we want to we want to reward people for doing that this day and age,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we are going to take a super quick break, but we're going to talk about you in our speechless promo about how you are our sponsors as well. Super psyched about that. We'll be back in a sec.
Woo.
Okay, popping in here.
Yes.
Thank you again to the VORG. We're so happy to have you on the show and remind you all that they are a sponsor for the rest of 2024.
Thank
So
you.
happy. Thank you so much. Yay. Be sure to get yourself a copy. Also, sponsors of Speechless, voiceoverextra.com. That's extra without the E, voiceoverextra.com.
Extra.
They have a
Don't be
lot.
extra unless you're voiceover
Voiceover
extra.
Extra.
Okay.
They have a lot of articles, anything you need
Webinars.
to learn, and lots of webinars as well. Anything you need to learn about voiceover, really, go to
It's a go-to place.
voiceoverextra.com and it's got everything you need, really, except for tech. So there may be some tech articles, but George the .tech is who you want to go to for tech information. George Whittam is a sponsor of Speechless. Thank you so much, George
Thank you,
Whittam.
George.
Gear recommendations, tech webinars, you name it. He's
Emergency
a
help.
resource. Yeah, and emergency help. Who doesn't need
Emergency
that? We all
help.
need
Hello.
emergency help. Uh,
Of course, I had to stick that one in there. Yeah. Emergency help.
and a quick little reminder of our incredible event that's coming up. It's going to be a great party, let alone an educational opportunity
Yeah.
in Burbank at the Urban Press Winery on
Your chance
August
to
3rd.
shine. Yep. Your chance
Right.
to shine for casting directors. It's an
Right.
opportunity. We put something together that we wanted to go to
Right.
without the fluff. So all day event for casting directors that you're going to learn about what they look for in auditions. They're going to teach
Right.
a little bit, and you're going to get
Right.
a chance to watch a little bit. It's going to be cool. And if you can't make it, tell them. Tell them, where
Go
are you? This way or this way?
Well, you can do a Zoom audit webinar, so
Yeah.
you can watch the whole day. It's actually hosted by Tracy Lindley. She will be
Thank you,
entertaining
Tracy.
you in between all the webinars.
Da 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 da.
Lots to learn, lots to do. So
Uh-huh.
go to speechlessvo.com for that. And also on our website, you'll see, well, not only will you see all our past episodes, but you can also join the Secret Society. It's basically a support group for voice actors where we share our wins, our challenges, and anything we need advice on, we support each other. So it's a pretty kickin' group. All right, back to the show. So one last question for you guys. We're wondering for the hard copy, which is so fun to have something in your hand and look through it as opposed to online all the time. What can talent look out for from each new issue? What, when we're picking it up, why can we be excited about having a new issue in our hands?
That is a good question. We're adding, throughout the issue comes out every 6 months,
Mhm.
and this industry moves very quickly.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Change, studios go out of business, new studios open, new coaches show up. So we're always updating that. If it's new listings, it's going to get in
Yeah.
there. We have new sponsors. We have
Yep.
new contests. You also get a really cool new cover that's been Miranda Parkin has illustrated for us for the last 3 editions. But the best thing I could say is that it's going to be the most accurate printed version of the information.
Right.
And,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the
and one of
rates
the things,
inside are updated. All the rates we make sure that, SAG-AFTRA contacts us and updates all their rates because that happens quite frequently.
Yep.
Yeah. Very good. We
we
love
try
up
to
to
be
the
a
minute.
consolidated, try and consolidate as much stuff as in one spot. And one thing that we didn't mention that we've done that we kind of started in is that we've actually reached out to all the agents and asked for their preferred method of contact. So that when you
Oh.
So
go
good.
to in the VORG, you can see if they have a preferred method of contact. It will say, please contact, like there's one agent only takes demos through Facebook Messenger. One has a submission
Oh my
website.
gosh.
One will some will take phone calls, some won't take phone calls. So we can take that first step out of the way for the talent who wants to submit, where you're not going to have to worry about, well, am I submitting to the wrong email address or the wrong place? We try to provide that info as much as possible. So if we have the information, if they've given us a preferred method of contact, it says preferred method of contact on the
Very
on
good.
agent listings.
Wow.
So good.
That's
Well,
so cool.
Jay, will you share, please, where people can find the VORG, both online and in print, and also those groovy T-shirts that you have?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. thevorg.net is the easiest thing to type in. So thevorg.net. There is also voiceoverresourceguide.com. But that is always and has been a long thing to type in. Once your web browser knows it, it's pretty easy. But thevorg.net is where you can go to the VORG. You can even order VORGs and get them shipped directly to you. And we
Yes,
plant a
we
tree
plant
when you do it that
trees.
way.
Yes.
Which I realized was something. I mean, that's a lot of issues that have been planted over the years, so we've got some catching up to do. We have to date planted 80 trees.
Nice.
I
Amazing.
have a thing right now going on where people, since it's Earth Day was yesterday, if anyone bought one yesterday or this whole week, we're planting 2 trees for every time. So that's great. The T-shirt, we're working on our store front right now on the website, which is taking a lot of time. But we want to make sure that when it goes live, it works. So people will be able to buy advertising and all that stuff right there on the website itself, and everything will be perfect and save a lot of time on our end. And then we'll also have some stuff for sale, like we have these really cool little wooden VORG holders.
Oh,
Because
cool.
the VORG is a brochure, but it does not fit on like any brochure holder. So I found a guy who custom makes these wooden VORG brochure holders that fit them perfect, and we'll be selling those. We have a lot of ideas for funny T-shirts, so
Oh, good.
I think voice actors need more T-shirts. Who doesn't?
We
So
thought so, but it's a pain in the butt to organize it, so I'm glad you're organizing it.
Yes, please.
Go buy some.
yeah, and we even have like on the back of the shirt is all our sponsors.
Excellent.
Oh, I love it.
Since the beginning. So I wanted to make it like a concert shirt, and so like as more sponsors get added on as the years go by, that's going to just probably get smaller and longer, but look more cool like a concert T-shirt.
Yeah.
Love it.
What was it? Oh, the other thing I was going to say, when you have a VORG, we have a lot of the events that are within that 6 months in there. So like we partner up with a lot of the conventions and things like that. So they'll be in there. You'll get to see what's coming up, and it's kind of like a time capsule for you at the end of the year. And also a lot of our advertisers and people in the listings offer discounts if you mention the VORG. So that's a
cool.
great thing to kind of search for when you go looking for the advertisers, like who's offering, a discount for if I want to go to your service. So that's kind of a fun thing too. Who doesn't like money off?
Right? And cheers to that. Well, thank you so much, guys, for
Thanks,
taking
guys.
time out of your day to be with us.
Appreciate it.
We are
Cheers.
thrilled to share this with our audience.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having us.
This episode of Speechless is brought to you by...
Hey, did you know that the very first newsletter in our industry still exists today?
I did. It's called Voiceover Extra.
It's got daily announcements, it's got career building advice, it's got products, opportunities.
Tons of articles, tons of webinars to purchase.
Yes, and we're going to be so extra, and tell you to sign up for Voiceover Extra. Tell them how.
You go to voiceoverextra.com. That's voiceoverextra.com.
Hey, is tech holding you back?
Let George the .tech take your studio to the next level.
That's right. All you have to do is schedule a quick consultation, get back on track.
George has brought together top-notch technicians to assist you via an emergency contact line.
Which is my favorite thing ever. Hey, you can benefit from webinars, training modules, recording, editing, studio setup, and troubleshooting.
Level up with George the .tech today. The Voiceover Resource Guide. What is the Voiceover Resource Guide?
It's an incredible networking tool. Not only that, but it's also the industry's oldest publication since, drumroll please, 1988.
Sounded like a cat. The publication comes out twice a year and now covers LA and New York and Chicago.
And there's also a free online version called thevorg.net.
Right. Here you can find recording studios, casting services, agents, rates, demo production, events, and so much more, and has the most up-to-date map search.
That's pretty cool. You can pick up your very own publication in various locations across the United States, or just go to thevorg.net and get one shipped right to you.
Speechless. Speechless.